السلام عليكم.
يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض، له الملك وله الحمد وهو على كل شيء قدير. هو الذي خلقكم فمنكم كافر ومنكم مؤمن، والله بما تعملون بصير. خلق السماوات والأرض بالحق وصوركم فأحسن صوركم وإليه المصير. يعلم ما في السماوات والأرض ويعلم ما تسرون وما تعلنون، والله عليم بذات الصدور. ألم يأتكم نبأ الذين كفروا من قبل فذاقوا وبال أمرهم ولهم عذاب أليم. ذلك بأنه كانت تأتيهم رسلهم بالبينات فقالوا أبشر يهدوننا فكفروا وتولوا واستغنى الله، والله غني حميد. زعم الذين كفروا أن لن يبعثوا، قل بلى وربي لتبعثن ثم لتنبؤن بما عملتم وذلك على الله يسير. فآمنوا بالله ورسوله والنور الذي أنزلنا، والله بما تعملون خبير. يوم يجمعكم ليوم الجمع، ذلك يوم التغابن. ومن يؤمن بالله ويعمل صالحا يكفر عنه سيئاته ويدخله جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها أبدا، ذلك الفوز العظيم. والذين كفروا وكذبوا بآياتنا أولئك أصحاب النار خالدين فيها، وبئس المصير. ما أصاب من مصيبة إلا بإذن الله، ومن يؤمن بالله يهد قلبه، والله بكل شيء عليم. وأطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول، فإن توليتم فإنما على رسولنا البلاغ المبين. الله لا إله إلا هو، وعلى الله فليتوكل المؤمنون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن من أزواجكم وأولادكم عدوا لكم فاحذروهم، وإن تعفوا وتصفحوا وتغفروا فإن الله غفور رحيم. إنما أموالكم وأولادكم فتنة، والله عنده أجر عظيم. فاتقوا الله ما استطعتم واسمعوا وأطيعوا وأنفقوا خيرا أنفسكم ومن يوق شح نفسه فأولئك هم المفلحون إن تقرضوا الله قرضا حسنا يضاعفه لكم ويغفر لكم والله شكور حليم عالم الغيب والشهادة العزيز الحكيم.
Assalamualaikum guys, I invited my brother Steve DeBlaze to come down from Sydney, check out my hometown of Adelaide, Australia. We're here overlooking the entire city as you can see, and we're also going to check out the dawah that's happening here. Stay tuned.
There's a possible Muslim Ronaldo here somewhere in the mix. I act like I'm a scout or something. Tell us about IFTAR. Everyone's talking about IFTAR.
Yeah. So IFTAR is an organisation in Adelaide. They just do amazing events for the community. IFTAR was there for me, and ever since day one, alhamdulillah, I've attended the Arabic school. I've learned how to read Arabic, brushed up in Arabic, learned how to read the Quran, got involved with the youth. SubhanAllah, it's affected my family, it's affected my life. If I didn't have IFTAR, like, I don't know what I'd be doing in my spare time. Yeah, thunder on three, thunder on three.
What do you say? Thunder on three?
Yeah.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Thunder! Yeah!
This is the biggest dawah organization in the state of South Australia. Every service that the Muslim needs comes through these guys, and we're going to go check it out now, inshallah.
So we're here. Show us around, man. I'm
Welcome to
excited.
IFTAR. Let's check it out. So these are just an example of some of the courses that they do here. Every single night of the week there's something for the adults to come and do. And on weekends like today there's lots of stuff for kids to do. Let's check it out. So subhanAllah, you can see every single class is full. We've got to squeeze through the hallways to let people through. We've really outgrown this center years ago, and it's time for a bigger premises, inshallah. That will be a masjid, a school, and a hub for all the adult classes as well. Just behind us here is the 3-4 buildings that are all in one complex. Used to be a big medical center. It's already built, it's already furnished. And this is the premises that we're going to buy for the Islamic Information Center South Australia. Let's check it out. You can see there's heaps of rooms which are all going to become classrooms, Muslim male and female doctors, male and female physio, chiro. There's even an indoor swimming pool here that they used to use for hydrotherapy. We're going to use it for sisters only swimming.
Absolutely massive.
It's a massive, massive place.
Wow. Massive. Ahmed, this place doesn't stop. Never ending.
I actually don't know how to even get to the front. I think we're lost. We need to find a map.
Man, what's this property valued at? I mean, it's massive. It's what, $10 million?
Alhamdulillah, you would think it would be 10 million, but it's actually, we're getting it for $3.3 million. Which is
All this for 3.3 million?
All of this, and it's so big that I'm lost in it. I don't know where the front door is, but 3.3 million, it'll be a taqwa masjid, all the classrooms for IFTAR, and a hub for the Muslim community.
The Prophet ﷺ made a public announcement to the Muslims, most likely in the house of Dar al-Arqam. And he said, Allah has shown me the land that you shall emigrate to. And it is a land of date palms between two volcanic plains. According to one version, the Prophet ﷺ announced it, but he didn't know the city. Then a few days later, he said, Allah has told me it is Yathrib. In one version, he said, I thought it might be Khaybar, but it is in fact Yathrib. In another version, he said, I thought it might be, he mentioned a land in Yemen. But both of those places don't have volcanic mounds around them. It's only Medina that has both of these signs. So he gave them permission to emigrate. So the Muslims began emigrating by ones and twos secretly. So the first person to emigrate, it is said, was Abu Salama. And Abu Salama gathered his belongings, took his stuff, he put his wife, and he had one child at the time, put them on his camel. So Abu Salama didn't do this secretly. He thought, this is my business, I can take whatever I want, right? And that's why, this was one of the reasons why people started migrating secretly, because of this story. So when he leaves, the Quraysh come and confront him with their weapons. And they said, oh Abu Salama, where do you think you're going? He says, I'm going to Yathrib. What business is it of yours? I have a free man, I'm allowed to go. So they said, as for you, we have no right. As for your wife, she is ours. She's a Qurashi. And we will not let you take her or her son because he is our son now. And so they forced him to leave his wife and child, and they expelled him without anything. When Abu Salama's tribe found out that he had been treated this way, their Jahiliyyah got the better of them as well. And they marched to the Quraysh and they said, as for the lady, she's yours. but this boy is ours. They picked up the boy to take him, and the Quraysh held on, and it became a tug of war with the 2-year-old until his hand was dislocated. And Salama cried out that let them take the boy. So Abu Salama's tribe took the baby. Salama's left with the Quraysh, and Abu Salama goes to Medina. And Salama is narrating the story herself. She said, for more than 16 months, every day, year and a half, I would go to Al-Batha, which is the farthest place outside of Mecca that is still within view of the city, right? Crying in the desert because that's where her child and her son and her husband have gone, right? Until finally, some of my cousins had sympathy on me, and they came and they begged the elders, what do you have to do? She's just a lady. She wants to go with her husband and child. Let her go. So after a year and a half, they let her go. She went to the tribe of her husband, and by this time as well, tempers had calmed down. So they gave back her the boy, and so she took the boy and she just walked into the desert, putting her trust in Allah that I need to get to Medina somehow. And so she says that by the time I got to Tan'im, there I met Uthman ibn Talha coming back from one of his expeditions. Maybe he went hunting, something. And he's coming back, he sees me all alone at Tan'im, and he's not a Muslim at this time. So Uthman says, what are you doing? So she says, I'm going to my husband, Abu Salama. So he says, you're all alone. He says, I have no one. I have Allah Azza wa Jal. So Uthman says, Wallahi, this will not be. I will take you. Salama says that I don't think there is any more noble gentleman amongst all of the Arabs than Uthman. He walked the entire way and he led the camel from Mecca to Medina, and he didn't say a word to me, but when it was time to stop, he would tell the camel to come down, and he would go forward and turn his back on me. When I would get down, he would put me under the tree, let me sleep, and he would sleep by the camel. And then in the morning I would get back on the camel, and we proceeded this way, all the way from Mecca to Medina, until finally when I could see the houses of Yathrib, basically, he said, your husband is over there, and he then let me go on the camel. This is at least a 2-week journey, one way. On the way back, he doesn't even have a camel. This is Uthman ibn Talha. Also, there's many other stories as well about this early immigration and the problems that people suffered. Suhaib al-Rumi. Suhaib decides to leave as well. It looks like he tried to leave surreptitiously, but eventually his news spread. The militia from the Quraysh marched outside of the city and surrounded him. Suhaib was armed. He pulled out his bow and his arrow, and he said, O people of Quraysh, I have 40 bows in my quiver, and I swear by Allah that none of you will get to me until I've used all 40. And then when you get to me, here is my sword, and I swear by Allah, nobody will be able to get me until I get to him first. Now, the Quraysh didn't want Suhaib to leave, but they loved their life more than they loved Suhaib leaving. So Suhaib said, what if I were to tell you where I hid all of my wealth? Will you let me go? They said, okay, deal. So he tells them all of his wealth, where it is buried. And so he literally arrived in Medina with just the clothes on his back. And as soon as the Prophet ﷺ saw him, he smiled and he said, Allah has revealed in the Quran about you, Ya Suhaib, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْرِي نَفْسَهُ ابْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ. There are those who sell everything that they have, they sell themselves for the sake of Allah. And he says, Ya Aba Yahya, that was his kunya. Jibreel has told him what Suhaib has done, and so the Prophet ﷺ tells him, your transaction has been successful, your transaction has been successful. When Umar decided to emigrate, Ali ibn Abi Talib narrates that I don't know of anybody who did the hijrah publicly except for Umar. Everybody was sneaking away. Everybody was doing it in the middle of the night. He armed himself and wore his shield and his arrows and everything, and he went to the Kaaba and did tawaf 7 times, and he's dressed as a traveler, he's prepared as a traveler, and then he makes a public announcement. O people of Mecca, whoever amongst you wishes that his mother lose him tonight, or that his children become orphans, or that his wife becomes a widow, then know that I'm performing the hijrah, and you can meet me outside of Mecca in such and such a valley. And of course, nobody took up Umar on that challenge. He chose as his companions for the journey 2 other Sahaba, Ayyash ibn Abi Rabi'a and Hisham ibn al-Aws, who's the brother of Amr ibn al-Aws. And the deal was, on such and such a day, we'll meet up at that valley outside of Mecca. And when dawn break, whoever's there will go. If you're not there, then we'll assume that you were stopped. At the appointed time, Hisham did not show up, which means that he was basically stopped and prevented. And so Ayyash and Umar were the ones who migrated to Medina. Abu Jahl and his brother were actually Ayyash's half-brother. So Ayyash and Abu Jahl and a third person all shared a mother, but different fathers. Abu Jahl and his brother traveled all the way to Medina, and they went to their half-brother Ayyash, and they said to Ayyash, Oh Ayyash, don't you know what you've done? Do you know the state of our mother after you left? She cannot eat, she cannot drink. She has made a promise to Allah that she won't taste the shade, and she's in the sun since then, and she is in such a state that lice has made her hair completely full of lice, and she cannot enjoy any food. You know, she's on the verge of death, etc., etc. She's made a promise to Allah she's going to sit in the sun until she sees her son again. And they kept on going about stories and stories until Ayyash's heart melted. And so he decided to go back with him. Umar said, "Oh Ayyash, they're tricking you." And then he said, "If she's hungry, she can eat food. If she has lice, she can shave her hair off, right? You don't have to go back and do that for her." So Ayyash said, "No, I'll be a good son. Let me go back to my mother. And I also have some money. I left it. Now that everything is secure here, I can bring the money back with me." Umar said to him, "If it's money, wallahi, I'll give you all that you have. Don't go." And they kept on insisting that, no, come back. Your mother needs you, this and that. And so Ayyash's heart became soft for his mother. So Umar pulled him aside and said, "Hey, look, if you're going to go, take my camel. Because my camel is stronger and faster than theirs. And if you find any treachery, ride back immediately to Medina." And then eventually, as the road goes on, they start chit-chatting. You know how it goes in the safar, you open up and they're laughing and joking. Abu Jahl then says, "Oh, looks like my camel is weary and tired. Why don't we just ride on yours because it is stronger?" And so Ayyash doesn't realize that this is a trap. So he makes the camel sit down. As soon as he do this, they jump on him. And they tie him up and they make him a prisoner. And they carry him back to Medina as a prisoner. And they march him around Mecca saying, "This is how we treat our fools." So they bring Ayyash back and he discovers that Hisham, the one they were supposed to meet, is also being held prisoner. So he gets thrown into the dungeon with Hisham. And the Prophet ﷺ eventually migrates to Medina. His first dua qunut was about Hisham and Amr, Ayyash and all of these people. And he would say, "Oh Allah, save Ayyash. Oh Allah, save Salama ibn Hisham. Oh Allah, save the Mustad'afin. Oh Allah, send your punishment upon the Quraysh." And he kept on asking the Muslims, who will volunteer to save Ayyash? Until finally, Al-Walid ibn al-Walid, Khalid ibn al-Walid's older brother, he said, "I will do it, Ya Rasulullah." And so he traveled to Mecca, entered it in the middle of the night, and Allah Azza wa Jalla blessed him to basically find out where this dungeon was because it's not public knowledge. And in the middle of the night, he broke into the dungeon and he cut the bonds of Ayyash and Hisham and saved and rescued them and brought them back to Medina. And the point that we need to underscore, the Prophet ﷺ was really one of the last, if not the last, adult Muslim to emigrate to Medina. The only people left after the Prophet ﷺ were some of the women and children, such as the family of Abu Bakr, such as Ali. Otherwise, basically, all of the adults had migrated before.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's your brother Yahya Ibrahim with another prophetic protection of our Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These were words that were spoken to Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. It's an authentic hadith that's found in Jami' al-Imam al-Tirmidhi. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said to Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, قال لي, Abu Hurairah says that the Prophet said to me, directly to me, قال لي أكثر من قول, exceed plentifully in the statement, لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله, لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله, فإنها كنز من الجنة, for it is a treasure from the treasures of Jannah. I want you to increase, Ya Abu Hurairah, from this statement. Now I want you to understand why this is a protection. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu was homeless, and subhanAllah, that wasn't aib, that wasn't something shameful at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. When you made hijrah to Al-Madinah and you came, sometimes you had to leave behind all of your wealth, everything you owned, and you would come with nothing but the clothing on your back to the Medina of the Prophet ﷺ, and it would take you time to build yourself up. So Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu used to live with the people of Sufa, and he used to complain about hunger, as is narrated in Bukhari, that he was so hungry at times that his hunger and malnutrition grew so much, كان عنده صرع, that he would fall into an epileptic fit. That's how hungry he would get. And in that condition, the Prophet said to him, because he had nothing else to give him in these moments of famine before the battle of Al-Ahzab and Khaybar, the Prophet said to him, of a way to protect yourself from this hunger, of a way for you to increase your prosperity, is to recognize that there is no condition, no strength, la hawla, no ability to turn from one place to another, no ability to turn harm from yourself or bring good to yourself, la hawla wa la quwwa, and no power that is vested, illa billah, except it is given by Allah. Notice that this is the same dua we make when that mu'adhin says, hayya ala salah, hayya al falah. In all of the other parts of the adhan, we say what the mu'adhin says. But when they say this, we say, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. We acknowledge that there's no power, no might, no ability, no way to turn right or left, no strength, nothing to give, nothing to take, except that which is given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even the answer to the salah, me to get up and pray, it's only because Allah, sharah Allahu sadri lil Islam, Allah opened my heart to accept faith, that I'm able to answer the call to Allah. It allows you to recognize that there is a power greater than you, and that whatever difficulty you have, that know that this is not something that can't be changed. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah is a treasure from the treasures of Jannah and a prophetic protection. May Allah allow us to take it many times in the day. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And you can add La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah al-ali al-azim. وصل اللهم وسلم وزد وبارك على سيدنا وحبيبنا ونبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
أنا أم مصطفى ترمى. يعني نزحنا بأول يوم برمضان، طلعنا قعدنا بعقربات، قعدت تحت الزيتون، ما حد استقبلنا. يعني ضلينا مدة أكثر من 3 أشهر 4 أشهر، وطلعنا لهوني. توفي بقذيفي بعيد عنكم. والله كل ما بتذكر يا أخي أشي الواحد صعب، يعني أشي الواحد. كنا بالبيت وشفناها اللي هداك ضربت. والله هي قتل بقتل يا خيي. الله بيصبر الإنسان اللي برقبته 5 أولاد، إيش بده يسوي يا أخي؟ والله ساعدنا الولاية، يعني منين ما في حدا يا أخي يساعدنا. الخيام وقت تشتي الدنيا يعني هو صار شوي. والله هذيك اشتريتها بفوق 60,000، باعوني أول ما طلعنا. يعني بحس الواحد يموت أريح ما يذوق هذا الذل وقت بشو بحس بواحد هالموقف اللي بيتوقف هيك. يعني وقت الإنسان وقت بيجي بيطالبك وما معه، إيش عملت يا أخي؟ الله بيصبر الإنسان، الله بيصبر الإنسان اللي برقبته 5 أولاد، إيش بده يسوي يا أخي؟ يا أخي بحطه صار بكي، يعني منقهرة، يعني بنقهر بنزعج هيك على هالشغلة هاي. كيف الواحد ما بينقهر؟ طلبوا شغلي هيك ثقيلة وما بقدر يأمن لهم إياها. لباس بيشتهوا اللباس، بلاقيها على حالة ثقيلة، ما في يا أخي مادي، يعني كثير ضعيفة، ما بقدر أمن لهم إياها. أمن لهم هيك شغلي فرحهم، هاي بنبسط فيها. يعني هاي اللي بأمن لهم أكلي أو بحبوها أو أي شيء، يعني هاي بنبسط فيها. والله ميتة هيك عايش هالولاد، لبسهم وكبرهم، ويعني هاي ميتة كلياتها. نقعد هيك نتقاوي مثل الله خلقهم قاعدين.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة.
والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته إنك لا تخلف الميعاد.
Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you all, and welcome back to another segment of Ramadan TV. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions in the Quran, He says, فَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ وَكُمْ مِنَ السَّاجِدِينَ وَعْبُدْ رَبَّكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكَ الْيَقِينَ. And prostrate before your Lord and be amongst those who prostrate. So glorify your Lord and be amongst those who prostrate, and worship your Lord until the moment of truth or the moment of certainty reaches you, meaning the moment of death or when a person passes away. So Islam is a comprehensive system that guides a person's life from the moment they are in the cradle, when they're born, all the way up to the moment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has appointed for them to leave this world. And this is something that everyone must prepare for with regards to what happens after they leave this world. So we're joined here by Brother Bilal Mir'abi to speak a little bit about this issue pertaining to wills, particularly given the case of the coronavirus, and we know that some of the devastating effects that it has had, particularly on the elderly population. This is a crucial issue that needs to be discussed at this current time. Brother Bilal, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, I'm well. So, with regards to one of the questions that comes up, we're speaking about wills, but what is a will to begin with?
Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So a will is a legal document which records how you want to distribute your property. So how your property is to be divided after you pass away.
Yep. And what is the importance from an Islamic perspective as well as from a general perspective, given we live in an Australian context, concerning the will?
So doing a will is the only way you can be sure that your property will be divided as per your wishes, whether it be Islamic or otherwise. It's the only way you can be sure of that. Essentially, if you don't prepare a will, the local South Australian laws will apply, and they will determine what happens to your property after your death. Those laws are not in accordance with Islamic principles. So for those Muslims who want to leave their property in accordance with Islamic principles, it is imperative that they prepare a will.
Yep.
It's also important from the point of view that basically if you don't have a will, your assets can be frozen for a period of time.
So can you explain that a little further? What do you mean by frozen?
So if you have got a will, then you haven't appointed an executor. An executor being the person that distributes the estate, that administers the estate.
Okay.
So by not having an executor, the assets will be frozen until such time as an order is made by the court as to who the executor will be. Another reason why wills are so important is for those Muslims in this community, for example, that come from abroad, whether it be work visa or they're an immigrant to Australia, if they don't have any relatives here in this country, there's a chance that their property will go to the government. So it's very important to do a will. From a Muslim perspective, it's even more important. I think us Muslims, there's a greater importance for us to do wills. Why? Because there's authority for it. So in the Quran, in Surah An-Nisa, verses 11 and 12, there are basically there's guidance as to how our inheritance is to be distributed. In verse 13, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, تِلْكَ حُدُودُ اللَّهِ وَمَنْ يُطِعِ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ يُدْخِلْهُ جَنَّاتٍ. These are the limits set by Allah. Those who follow them will be admitted to Jannah, to paradise. So there's a significant obligation from Allah on us to make sure that we give our property in accordance with His rulings in Surah An-Nisa in the Quran.
Yes.
In addition to the Quran, we have Sahih Hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said, if you have something, do not let 2 nights pass without writing a will about it. This is on the authority of Abdullah bin Amr. It's reported in Sahih Bukhari, volume 4, book 51, and other hadith. So we have both the Quran and the Sunnah, which guides us to ensure that our property is given in accordance with the Quran.
With the Quran, yes, and the Sunnah. So just a brief explanation about what a hadith is for the viewers they may not know out there. A hadith is a statement left behind by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When we grant it as authentic, that means the chain of narration is sound all the way up to the point that it reaches us. And Bukhari is one of the major collectors of the hadith or the statements of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These two source texts, the Quran and the Sunnah, are what form the basis of the Islamic law. And within this Islamic law, that's where wills are also specified, which is what Brother Bilal was speaking to us about. So Brother Bilal, now that we've spoken a little bit about the importance of a will, can you tell us a little bit about what is included in a will?
Essentially, what is contained in the will. Firstly, if we can start with a little bit of terminology. So the person writing a will is called the testator.
Testator, okay.
And the testator will appoint an executor. The executor being the person who basically administers the will, the estate.
Yes, yes.
Okay?
Yep.
Estate meaning property and assets.
Yes, okay.
So one of the most important things in a will is you appoint an executor who you trust, who will do basically what you want them to do in accordance with the will. Most people appoint family. Some brothers and sisters in this community might not have family in Australia, so they'll appoint a very close friend, for example. They can appoint family if they're overseas, but there are complications sometimes in getting those family members here, getting a visa. It's not always easy. So that's the first thing. The next thing is, and this is both Islamic and also in compliance with Australian laws, debts and funeral expenses need to be paid first. And in the wills that I draft, I also include unpaid zakat.
Yep, okay.
So all these things are paid first, then the distributions apply.
Yes.
So you basically, you say who you want your property to go to after the debts are paid.
Yep.
For Muslims who want to do it in accordance with Islamic principles, there are, as I'm sure you know, Abdul fractions which apply. So for example, 1/6 to father, 1/6 to mother, 1/4 to husband, 1/8 to wife, and so on and so forth. That this is the part of the will where you would specify how you want your property to be distributed.
Okay.
Aside from the distribution of the estate, 2 other important things which you can put in a will are a guardian clause. So for those families who have children, I believe it's critically important to appoint a guardian to look after your kids should, for some Allah, God forbid, something happen to you and your wife or you and your husband, right? So for a couple, obviously if something happens to one of them, that's okay because the other one's automatically the legal guardian. But if something happens to both of them, they can appoint, for example, a family member or a close friend to look after their children. It's really important because you'd imagine if there was no appointment of a guardian, there's a chance that the Department for Child Protection will basically put them with a family. That family might not be Muslim. So it's important. The other thing which often Muslims will include, or anyone really will include in a will, are basically wishes in regards to burial. So for us Muslims, we, in the wills that I draft for Muslims, basically include provisions which talk about that the body is to be washed and wrapped in accordance with Islamic principles, prayed for, face the direction of Qibla, and so on and so forth. You know, you can also include things like, you know, no symbols, no fancy tombstone, no music at the ceremony. You can include all of these things in a will.
Just with regards to the administrator, as you were saying, or the executor who carries out the will before, we have a segment on Ramadan TV. I'm sure the viewers have seen it. It's called Revert Story. So within the Muslim community, we have a growing population of people who've reverted back to Islam. That means they were previously not Muslim and then they came to Islam. how would they go about appointing an executor, since many of them would come from, you know, non-Muslims, family members who wouldn't be necessarily knowing of the Islamic laws concerning wills, and they may not, just as they're coming into the community, they may not have formed, you know, the kind of connections that would need to be, you know, have been established pretty well enough to put a person in such a, you know, critical position as entrusting them with your estate.
Yeah, very good question. Very difficult to answer. You know, you have to find someone. And if you don't have family here, or potentially, you know, some reverts, their family are not Muslim, as you've mentioned, and basically, you know, Islamically, a non-Muslim cannot inherit from a Muslim, and vice versa. Okay, now that's in terms of who inherits, but in terms of appointing an executor, generally the consensus is that you would appoint a Muslim to be your executor. And that's challenging if you're a revert and your family are non-Muslim. So your choices are, you either appoint a family member who's not a Muslim, but you're trusting that they will do the right thing and follow what's in your will, or you go to a friend, a close friend. Now, if you're new to the community, you might, as you said, you might not have established close friends. So it's a hard one.
It's a hard one. Could potentially a person maybe approach an Islamic organization or entity, or could is that a possibility, or
so it wouldn't be
very grey area?
It wouldn't be an entity. It would be someone within the entity, someone specific, because you have to specify.
Yes. Okay.
The problem with if everyone wants to go with a particular person in a particular entity, it puts a big burden on that person.
On that person, yes.
And they might not want that responsibility.
True.
But it's a good idea, and if there are a number of people within an organisation, such as Human Appeal or, you know, whoever, if they were prepared to take on that that onus, obviously it would need to be discussed with them, and they would need to agree to it. But that is an option for those reverts who don't have anyone else.
Okay, that's something to think about. Now that we've gone through a little bit of that, in terms of the importance of a will, what a will is, could you take us a little bit through the process of developing or making a will?
So technically, you can do a will yourself. It's a written document. You basically put in those things that we talked about before and have it witnessed by two independent witnesses.
Yes.
Generally, as a lawyer, I would recommend that people do go through a lawyer to prepare their will. The reason for that is if the will doesn't comply with the local laws, if it doesn't meet the formal requirements, it basically isn't worth the paper that it's written on.
Okay.
It'll be void. It won't be followed. So all it takes is to make one mistake, for it to be confusing, for it to be hard to understand, or there to be some inconsistency throughout the document, and then basically you lead to lots of problems, and your family, your loved ones, will inevitably need to go to lawyers to fix the problems, which will cost a lot of money to do that. So the process for those Muslims who do wills through me is basically they come and see me. I take instructions, work out what their circumstances are, and then I draft the wills for them and then get them back for a signing appointment. For any Muslims in the community who have any questions.